Thank you so much for everything to be here. I'm so honored. I'll just jump right into it. So my art practice really starts from my own social anxiety in almost every situation. And so I started out, this is a really early work, but I started out trying to think about what are the things that in particular I do bad compared to everyone else, like smiling, and how could I solve this problem? And so I started hacking together this little hat that would detect if I was smiling, and if I stopped smiling, it would stab me in the back of the head until I started smiling again. Yeah, anyway, so it was part of a series of devices, like an anti-daydreaming device that was detecting if I was talking to someone, it would vibrate violently around the neck if I stopped paying attention, or a body contact training suit that would detect if I'd gone too long without making some like normal human body contact, and I'd have to reach out to people and touch them in order to talk to them. And I use this DIY aesthetic to suggest that anyone could make these devices to help themselves fit in. But also in here was this question: what is fitting in? What are these optimal behaviors we're trying to achieve? Joanne McNeil drew attention to the emotional labor required in all our interactions and relationships, especially expected of women. In her emotional labor browser extension, you can write your messages tersely as you like, and then click a button, and all the positive emotional extras will be added in for you to save you the work. Or Kelly Dobson's Scream Body allows you to contain a scream in a public place, if it's maybe not appropriate. For later release, somewhere more appropriate. So these tools make us laugh, but I think we're reacting to this underlying truth that we often want these things. And then on the other hand, what is this fitting in? What are these normal behaviors that we're trying to achieve? And what are the things we do to try and get there? I'm really inspired by the work of Sarah Hendren, and this is a project with Caitlin Lynch, Engineering at Home, where Sarah thinks a lot about this question of what is normal and how do we expand that. So in this project, she was documenting interactions with a woman named Cindy, who after suffering a catastrophic heart attack and amputations involving all 4 limbs, began hacking and building what she needed out of household items, adapting her environment. The website points to these new ways of understanding who can engineer or hack, what counts as engineering, and then more importantly, what is this normal space, and can we kind of blow the walls off of it? So thinking about this, I didn't really solve all my problems with the hat, and I thought maybe humans would be better than an algorithm at kind of following me and guiding my behavior. And so I wondered if I could crowdsource my interactions, or specifically my failing dating life. So I used a system called Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a website that allows you to post small jobs for small amounts of money and get people to do tasks for you. Things that, usually it's things that people are really good at, but humans are not so good at, like look at this image and tag it, transcribe this audio, etc. And so in my case, well, I'll just play this video and I might talk over a little bit, but it sort of explains the project. So during this month of dates with people I met on OkCupid, I set up my phone to stream myself on the date to the web, and then I paid people through this website to watch and decide what I should do or say next. And then I would get these messages, text messages, and I had to perform them immediately. So this was sort of the log that I kept, and then I iterated the interface to figure out what mechanism of feedback was the most helpful. These are some of the things they said. Sometimes they would give their observations instead of directions. So I I'd stumbled upon the way to live, but I was really confused still about now the boundaries of my own kind of self-concept, or what it meant for others to have this kind of control over me. And wondering, is this dishonest, or is this just the way I've decided to live my life in, the year 2013? Or does it become more like this collective group of people actually merging into one? And with all of this, it's sort of about prototyping the future. So this was right around when Google Glass came out. And everyone was really concerned with the idea that people would be wearing cameras. But I thought, we're already carrying cameras. What's really concerning to me is the idea of like people consuming information without anyone knowing constantly. So I make these projects as sort of like fast forwards, trying to imagine what is this near future and what might it be like. And as surveillance and big data becomes increasingly ubiquitous, we're forced to negotiate new relationships with it. A common reaction is fear, but when it's all around us, how do we still go on with our lives? So one thing that really stood out to me with this experience was just being in it, and that was the one part that I couldn't communicate to everyone else. When I was doing it, it was really hacky. Sometimes the system would break, and I'd run to the bathroom and kind of like log into the server and try to fix the code and come back out and be like, just like putting on some lipstick. So I wanted to make something where other people could try this, and so what I made was an app that anyone could use that was a little bit less about the kind of discrete secretive thing and more about just imagining a future where you use this. And this is part of the trailer for it.
Crowdpilot is an app that lets you crowdsource your conversations. Bring along your friends or invite strangers to help you in any situation, like a date, a meeting, a family gathering, or just let them figure out what's going on. Your Crowdpilots listen in and give you live suggestions of what to do or say. Relax, take control, take a chance, get Crowdpilot.
So it was an app. You could download it from the App Store, and the response was overwhelmingly upset, outraged. The end of the world, we should all give up now, just kill me. Is this an art project? I can't tell, it looks too nice to be an art project. Ban startups, ban ideas, Fox News had their take.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them. Thanks to the new phone app Crowdpilot, the NSA is no longer the only snooping game in town. Now you are. To tech guru Cassie Slane on how it all works. What are we talking about here?
Well, I wish I had this app back in my dating days.
It's weird. It's just very, very weird.
This is actually tempting the evil right there. No, but this is actually a great idea because what it's doing is it's making another form of what we're already using social media in its best sense.
Wait a minute.
They get it sometimes. And so this is a little bit silly and outrageous, but the point for me is looking at the internet as a means for distribution and dissemination. And so the sort of viral video is then something that gets people to see this thing, and maybe they're outraged at first, but they start to have conversations. And then more importantly, they have to decide, will I use it? And how, right? You don't get to just have a reaction. It's actually a possibility to download this app. And so you see people, you can actually drop into these sessions. These were some of the ones that right around the launch of, help me convince my roommate to move out, or help me settle this argument with my boyfriend. And amidst rapid technological development and social discourse, it's so easy to dismiss something new with a knee-jerk reaction of like or dislike. But the innovations and the changes we're seeing aren't black and white. So to move forward, I think we have to engage with these tensions and questions. The goal of this app was to create a space for people to do that, to engage, to question, and to decide for themselves how they wanted to live in the world. I became really obsessed with this idea of just watching people. And this next trailer kind of intros the next project.
Wake up, I get dressed, I go out, I do things. I read a magazine and I find out about people. Why do I know about their lives? Somebody should be knowing about mine. I want to share things with people, but I don't want to have to talk to people and tell them what I'm doing. I think it'd be great for them to see what I'm doing. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to touch base with people. So I don't want another relationship. I just want to have a relationship with somebody that I never have to talk to, that can just follow me and see me having a relationship with myself. If I knew somebody was following me, watching my life, it might add some more fun to my life. I like to play. Doing something for having fun for myself would at the same time create a new experience for somebody else. I think I'm a pretty positive person, and I think that the things I do are with consideration of other people. Who knows what somebody wants to see, but if I bring out the best self of myself, maybe that will spark something in them.
So Follower is a service that provides a real-life follower for a day. In order to be followed, you go to a website and answer 2 questions. Why do you want to be followed, and why should someone follow you? If you're selected, you're sent an app, and when you open it, it just says waiting for a follower. And then one day, you don't know what will happen, but you wake up and you're notified your follower is now following you. And the follower stays just out of sight, but within your consciousness. And the follower is me. So I'm the blue dot running down the street after the red marker there in San Francisco for this one, and physically following the person. And then at the end of the day, you get one photo of yourself taken somewhere during that day with a notification you're no longer being followed. We're living in this weird, anxious time where on one hand, surveillance is pervasive and out of control, and on the other hand, we have this intense desire to be seen, to share every intimate detail of our lives. There's sites you can go to buy online followers. $10 can get you 1,000. You can find out how real your followers are. But could a real-life follower provide something more meaningful or satisfying? How do we perform when we know or think someone's watching, and does it change when we're talking about physical space, or one individual person versus a crowd of attention-divided people online? And Follower offers surveillance as a luxury experience. This is an app for people that not only have nothing to hide, but need to be seen. Embedded in this offer, who are the people that don't have the privilege of hiding, of not being seen, just because of who they are or what they look like? And then with the gig economy, it seems sometimes we're willing to try any app that promises us something convenient, novel, or useful. But I think putting an interface between people is risky. It weakens your connection to the person on the other end. I really like this hashtag life after chores. Like, the chores disappeared, but the chores didn't disappear, just the people, because you don't have to talk to them anymore. You just use an app to control them and have them come and hold your pit on the beach until you show up at just the right time. And I'm really inspired by, this practice of following in general. I see that beeping, but I think I have more time still, right? That was what I was told, at least. But maybe I'll just skip these, because maybe not. Anyway, but I have to talk about Heather's project, right? So I'm interested in this idea of finding a small piece of someone and sort of expanding on that. So Heather was walking around the streets in Brooklyn, picking up pieces of chewed gum, or a cigarette butt, and extracting from that enough DNA to construct a portrait of what that person might have looked like. And I think that's this idea that you get some small piece of someone, and then immediately your mind goes to, but also maybe the technology goes to, expanding on that a lot. Ultimately, I want to create different sorts of interactions in relationships than we have normally. I'm wondering, as much as technology might separate us at times, could it also bring us together in new and interesting ways? I will skip these, but these are some of the final portraits of the people. And then finally, to close on this last project, I started thinking a lot about, rather than public space, the private space of the home. I was thinking about these smart devices that were being sold to outfit our homes with surveillance cameras, sensors, and automated control, offering us convenience at the cost of loss of privacy and control over our lives and homes. We're meant to think these are about utility, but the space they invade is personal.
They're relying on the Blitz too much.
Alexa, play My Girl.
Okay.
The home is the place where we're first socialized, first watched over, first cared for. How does it feel to have that space occupied and controlled by these AI devices? Programmed by probably a small homogeneous group of developers that may or may not share our social values. And then women, long seen as keeper of the home domain, as complicated as that idea is, are now further subjugated. Their control is undermined by the smart home assisting and shaping every activity. I'm interested in other ideas of what the smart home might be. I won't talk too much about these, but I wanted to show them. Lucy McRae's Fat Monk video, Noam Torn's Accessories for Lonely Men, and a chest hair twirler, a heavy breather, a plate thrower. You get the idea. We talked about Merry Magic already, and Krzysztof Wojcicko's Tijuana project, reimagining our relationship to architecture and the stories embedded in that. And so with all of this, I decided what I really wanted to do was try and become Amazon Alexa, a smart home intelligence for people in their own homes. And so the idea was that, again, you could go to a website, you could learn about the project, you could sign up, you'd record a video explaining why you wanted to get Lauren in your home. I would come and begin the performance by installing a series of custom designed network smart devices, including cameras, microphones, switches, door locks, faucets, and other devices. And then I would remotely watch over the person 24/7 and control all aspects of their home. I attempt to be better than an AI because I can understand them as a person and anticipate their needs. The relationship that emerges falls in the ambiguous space between human to machine and human to human. And so I'll close on this last video that shows some of the thoughts on what it might be like for one of the participants to get Lauren in their home.
Lauren, where are my car keys? Lauren knows that I like it a little bit cooler than Miriam does.
You know, I'm usually the one that does all these little extra things. So at first I was a little bit careful about asking her, and now it's like, how else can we live?
Lauren has recommended that I get a haircut every 3 weeks, and let me tell you, it's helped with my my self-esteem a lot. I am able to simply approach and carry on conversations with the opposite sex, where at one point or another that wasn't so easy. Lauren, we're out of toothpaste.
Lauren would know what I want, but then maybe it's not what I really want internally, but externally she thinks that Lauren thinks that playing music or shutting down all my electronics is the best way for me to cope and winding down, when maybe it's not.
Lauren was actually able to help her manage her medication and take her medication on time, and everything actually got a lot better after that.
You have those friends who are kind of about you, like the friendship is about you. That's what Lauren is like. It's like a roommate, it's a friend, but we're always talking about me. It's always about me, whatever it is.
Because it's a real person, and it's going, and Lauren is a real person, and Lauren's been through perhaps what I've been through.
And then I forget that she's around, even though she's kind of always around, or I assume she's always around. And then I'll remember she's there, and I wonder if my hair looks okay, and then I can check in.
Because I don't really like the idea of Lauren being in control. I like the idea of her being in support, but not in control.
On the one hand, I'm perfectly fine having Lauren around, and it's become very comfortable for me. But one might argue that at some point there's a side of ourselves that we want to keep private.
Every sort of data, all the output goes straight to Lauren, and that's where it ends.
To avoid any kind of explosion or any kind of anger, sadness, there's never a time I really have to ask for anything. It's like Lauren already knows what I'm feeling. Lauren feels what I'm feeling. So where you can focus on the more important things.
I'm not some automated system. I'm not pre-programmed. And like Alexa and Siri, they don't care about you. But with this, there's nothing artificial. These are people. And with each one, I'm watching and anticipating and trying to figure out what is it that they need. And it almost becomes sort of like a game. Like, sure, I can turn on the lights or run the faucet, but what is the thing that I could do that would bring a smile to their face or actually surprise them or just make them feel something? I think we just have to try things. We have to engage with these systems. We have to decide for ourselves how we want to feel, how we want to live in the world with them. Thank you.